Hello, everyone. I'm Asha from We Are Diabetes. Welcome to your Recovery Toolkit. Today we have a wonderful guest and a wonderful friend of mine, Susan Weiner. And before we get started discussing some questions about diabetes management and staying organized with your diabetes management, I want to read you a little bit of her bio. I can't possibly keep track of all the amazing things she's done, so I just want to share a little bit about her history with you. So Susan Weiner is an award-winning registered dietitian nutritionist and certified diabetes educator and published author. Her master's degree in applied physiology and nutrition from Columbia University has afforded her the opportunity to practice as a nutritionist and exercise physiologist, which is a very cool combination. Owner of Susan Weiner Nutrition, PLLC, which is located in New York, Susan was named the 2015 AADE Diabetes Educator of the Year and is the recipient of this year's Dare to Dream Award from the Diabetes Research Institute. She's also been honored with the 2014 Distinguished Alumna Award from SUNY and received the 2015 Life Changer Award from Health Monitor. Susan writes the column Diabetes in Real Life, which is a featured monthly column in Endocrine Today, and she's also the co-author of The Complete Diabetes Organizer, Your Guide to a Less Stressful and More Manageable Diabetes Life, one of my favorites, and Diabetes 365, Tips for Living Well. She's the key educational advisor for Marjorie's Fund, which is a type 1 diabetes global diabetes initiative. She's on the advisory board for Diabetes Sisters and for the Beaties, two of WAD's already partners. So I kind of like how she's all around our network. And she also serves on the board of directors of Project Real. Most importantly to us, Susan is passionate about helping people with diabetes live the best, healthiest lives possible. And so with that being said, Susan, thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm so glad to be here, and it's an honor to work with you.
Oh, well, thank you. So let's dive right in. I would like to hear what led you, how did this become what you do? What sparked you to get involved with the diabetes community? How did you get to where you were in a small story?
I get asked this question so often, so thank you for bringing it up. I'm part of a really big family. My mom is the youngest of 10 children, 5 girls and 5 boys. And in that large family, I have many, many cousins, several of whom have type 1 diabetes, some of whom have type 2 diabetes. So as a young child, I was always interested in health, nutrition, fitness. It was just always a passion of mine. And growing up, in addition to my cousins who had diabetes, I had one, and still have, one very dear childhood friend who had diabetes. And although she inspired me as a child with all she did, I also saw the challenges, the daily challenges that she went through on her journey throughout her childhood, adolescence, and now in adulthood. And there are challenges day to day that all these people live with. So after a number of years as practicing as a registered dietitian, about 3 to 4 years, I pursued becoming a diabetes educator. Best decision I ever made, because I love working with people who want to make changes for themselves and lead a healthier life.
I love that answer. And you know, what's interesting is I was just having a conversation with someone the other day talking about how a CDE is excellent, but if you are a CDE with another sort of specialty, it's highly valuable for the diabetes community because you get 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak.
It's so true, and people have different backgrounds who are certified diabetes educators. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist. There are pharmacists, social workers, medical doctors, people from all different backgrounds, which is, you're right, very, very important.
Yeah. One question that I think we should discuss is, if someone is feeling very overwhelmed in dealing with their type 1 diabetes specifically, and if they were a patient coming to see you, what initial advice or suggestions would you want to give to them?
I have to take a step back because the late, great Dr. Richard Rubin, who I always quote, came up with the word or the term diabetes overwhelmus. Isn't that a great word? Diabetes overwhelmus. And that referred to the fact that right now there's not a cure for diabetes. We hope there is one someday soon. But until there is a cure, think about it. you or somebody with diabetes, before you were diagnosed, were already overwhelmed and so busy in your daily life. You dealt with work or school, relationships, your kids, your parents, your pets. Now that you throw a diagnosis of diabetes in it, you feel very disorganized sometimes and overwhelmed. So the first piece of advice so that you feel that you can do something, to me, is to keep a checklist. Write down what you need to do in any aspect of your life or your diabetes life or both. So you can write a checklist which will help you put your thoughts on the checklist so you can use your brain for thinking and your checklist for remembering. Your brain should be thinking.
I love that. And you know, it's funny because it seems like such a simple thing that I think a lot of people go, well, I don't need that. That's not going to solve this. But people, you guys don't understand. Like, everything changes hour to hour with type 1. And I forget things like taking my Lantus. I have to set a phone alarm. That's not a checklist, but I use checklists all the time. And so this advice from Susan, it seems so simple that why do it? But it really actually helps.
You have many things to do in your life. Think about in the morning when you have to leave your house. Wouldn't it be better to have a checklist of what you need to put together so that you don't have to think about it? Your checklist can think for you, and you can use your brain for thinking about other things. It takes stress off. It helps to reduce your stress.
Yes, it really does. And, you know, I get teased now because if you walk into my kitchen, there's Post-its with checklists in different areas of the kitchen, and people are like, what are you planning? What kind of scheme? And they read it, and it's all about diabetes stuff. It's not a worldwide takeover or anything like that. So a lot of people that reach out to We Are Diabetes struggle with this concept of all or nothing thinking. So a lot of them, they know the numbers are going to be bad, so they don't test. And that, you know, they're also not worried about being low because they're extremely high from not taking enough insulin. So, and a lot of them start out with the best intentions every morning to get back on track. But then one thing goes wrong, and then it's that all or nothing thinking. They just give up. So if you had a patient like that, how would you approach that, that issue that they're having?
I try to put myself as a diabetes educator as being in a completely non-judgmental zone. So when a person comes to see me who has diabetes, or for any other reason, but if somebody comes to see me who has diabetes, I've learned throughout the years to become a great listener. There is an art to listening and to really hear what's going on with the person rather than as an educator. I want to impart knowledge right away, but I don't. I listen. So together, we take a deep breath, and I ask them, what is one thing that is bothering them, or what is keeping them from accomplishing whatever self-care goal or whatever they're trying to do for themselves? Because even though they want to, or they've been told by a healthcare provider, check your blood sugar like you're saying, or take your insulin, there might be something else that's bothering them. So if we can just address that first and then get to what's bothering them. The second thing that I advise is I think that on many levels, willpower is a myth. So we can't say, I have to have willpower to do this or to not eat this or to exercise. Willpower is a myth. It is much better to lay out a plan, perhaps a routine, perhaps one small step or a goal just to get to where you need to be for your self-care behavior, to make it a little less painful, to make it painless, to make it almost joyful if it's an accomplishment, to make it positive. So that's a really good piece of advice, I think, for someone with diabetes going to see a CDE or another healthcare provider. You're the leader of your healthcare team. Make sure your voice is heard. Your goals are met. What's bothering you is listened to. Because the education is knowledge, it's all important. But if something is a roadblock to you, speak about that first.
I love that. And you know, I I'm glad that there are people like you who state that they are there first to listen and then help. And I know you and I both know that there's a lot of providers out there who think that their job is to walk in and start dictating, just here's what you need to do. Do you have any questions? But it sounds like you are of the tribe of thought that we need to have a larger conversation about what is a roadblock, what's bothering you. We need to have some talking around all of the task management. There has to be a conversation.
Absolutely, and I think that you just stated the question perfectly. You can't ask yes or no and questions on an assessment. They have to be open-ended questions. One of the topics that I speak about a lot now is the misdiagnosis and symptom awareness to communities that are not yet diagnosed with diabetes, just as an example. So I wouldn't ask somebody, how are you urinating a lot? That's a yes or no answer. And if somebody wants to please, or if somebody has a high blood sugar who hasn't taken their insulin, that is somebody who wants to please their provider or their doctor will answer accordingly. So you may want to rephrase the question of, how many times did you urinate? How many times did you pee in the last 2 hours? Tell me about that. Is it more often than yesterday? Not, did you eat breakfast? What did you have for breakfast? And go through that. Those are open-ended questions to elicit a discussion, to listen, not just to impart knowledge. Very important.
I didn't even think about that, but I realized that until I had the team that I now have for diabetes management, I was always asked yes or no questions. I was never asked to elaborate. In fact, I almost felt like I was prevented from doing so. So there was never a conversation about my struggles, but that just revealed so much to me. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
So let's see. I really want to make sure we cover this because I read an article of yours, actually I think it was in a number of them that you talk about this, but I love this and I didn't even realize that I was doing this already. But I want you to describe to our viewers what the launching pad, I think I said it right this time. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. In the morning, we have, even if somebody's a morning person, in the morning, minutes are precious. When I give a talk on diabetes to a community, to professionals, whichever group, I always ask how many people are morning people, how many are not. It's always a 50-50 split. But what everybody can agree on is that people who have diabetes have way too much to do in the morning. It's just things that have to be done for diabetes self-management. So in the evening, even though you're busy, there's more time for most people in the evening. So I suggest that someplace in your home where you're going to exit in the morning, we are going to find a place and call it a launching pad that you have to pass on your exit for the house. And the night before you leave, make a checklist of everything you need to put in your diabetes supply bag and keep that supply bag on the launching pad. Of course, you may have some things in your refrigerator, and using one of your ideas of a Post-it note, you could put a little Post-it note on your bathroom mirror to remember what's in the refrigerator. But if everything is in your diabetes supply bag on the launching pad in the morning, you won't forget it. And you don't have to be stressed out or freaked out that you leave the house without your supplies. I just love the idea.
I love it too. And you know what's interesting is that I remember there was a time that I did something really weird with my glucometer bag. I put it somewhere else in the house, and I didn't put it back right next to this butcher block that I basically use as my diabetes central. And I went to work without it, and I was like, oh my God. And I knew exactly why that had happened. It is because it was not in the place it was supposed to be in the morning. And you're right. I mean, the amount of extra thinking that a type 1 or any diabetic has to go through in the morning it's critical, and we just, it's too easy to miss something just completely because there's other stuff going on. So that's wonderful advice, and I think especially for people who may have not been used to regularly taking care of themselves, they can forget how many things they need to bring with themselves every day.
Absolutely. It's a small step, for something you can do for yourself, and it's going to give you big kudos of accomplishment for yourself. And it doesn't just need to be your diabetes supplies, because you're a whole person. You can put your house keys and car keys there, your bag with your wallet in it, whatever you need to put there just to make you feel more accomplished. And one last point on your diabetes supply bag, I like to put, yes, a paper index card pinned to your diabetes supply bag with a list of what's inside so that you know exactly what's in there. And if you need to add something, you can. Just so helpful. Little strategies and tips can be so helpful.
It can. And you know, when you're talking, sometimes I forget you're not a type 1, but you talk and think like one. It's amazing. Like, really, you are the ultimate T3. Well, Susan, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I'm sure we will be chatting with you again and sharing this with the community. I wish you luck with the rest of your day. Thank you so much for giving us some time.
It was my honor and pleasure, and I'm so looking forward to working with We Are Diabetes in the future.